Victor Watson sat by the window of his penthouse suite, staring at the shimmering city lights of Nairobi. Everything around him screamed wealth: Italian leather furniture, crystal chandeliers, priceless art on the walls, but inside he felt hollow. At 53, he was one of the richest men in East Africa, with successful businesses in real estate, banking, and telecommunications. But none of it brought him peace. His wife, Rachel, was elegant and beautiful, the kind of woman who always turned heads. His 21-year-old daughter, Vanessa, was the pride of his name, always dressed in the latest designer outfits and never seen without the newest iPhone. But despite their smiles and warm words, Victor had a constant ache in his chest, a question he couldn't shake. Would they still love me if I had nothing? He'd overheard whispers once. Rachel on the phone, talking about how lucky she was to marry a man with such deep pockets. Vanessa complaining about how boring poor people were. Those words never left him. Victor didn't want to die without knowing the truth. He had spent his life building an empire, but his biggest investment, his family, might have been a lie. That night, as rain tapped softly against the glass, Victor picked up his phone and dialed his most trusted assistant, Charles. Close all companies, liquidate what you can, transfer everything into the offshore account. Quietly, he said. Charles hesitated. Sir, are you sure? I'm very sure. It's time I found out who really loves me. The following morning, the golden sun rose over the city skyline, but for Victor it felt like the beginning of a storm. He sat across from Charles, his loyal assistant of 15 years. The two men were in the private study, soundproof, guarded, and far away from any prying ears. Charles looked nervous, his fingers drumming lightly on a brown envelope filled with documents. Sir, everything is in motion. Your businesses are now under temporary closure. Funds have been moved into the private bank account overseas, as requested. Officially, you are broke. Victor nodded, the weight of his plan sinking in. And the media? I leaked a controlled story to the press. Headline reads, Victor Mwangi declares bankruptcy amidst loan scandal. It should be viral by noon. Victor leaned back in his chair, his heart thudding in his chest. Good. Now let's see if my family loves me, or my wallet. By afternoon, the mansion was in chaos. Rachel paced the living room, her voice shrill as she argued with her sister over the phone. Bankrupt? No. There must be a mistake. Victor can't be broke. That man has more money than most countries. Vanessa sat on the staircase, clutching her handbag like it held her life inside. Dad, please tell me this is a prank. What do you mean everything is gone? My birthday is next week. You promised me a trip to Paris. Victor didn't flinch. He had rehearsed this scene in his mind 100 times. With a calm, defeated look on his face, he replied, We've lost everything. The bank is after us. I had to sell all assets to avoid prison. Rachel dropped her phone. This can't be real. What about the house? The cars? They're all gone. We have one option left, to move to the countryside, to the old family house in Maranga. Vanessa stood up in horror. The village? You want me to live in the village with goats and chickens? I'm not some peasant, Dad. Victor's heart ached, but he stayed silent. He needed to see this through. By the end of the day, their bags were packed. Not by the maids. They had all left after the bankruptcy was announced. For the first time in years, Rachel and Vanessa had to carry their own luggage. As they drove off in an old second-hand car Victor had bought for this mission, he glanced in the rearview mirror. The city faded behind them, and so did the life he had built. He didn't know what he would find in the village, but deep down, he was finally ready to face the truth. The road to Maranga was bumpy, winding through dusty paths and dense greenery. Birds chirped above, a stark contrast to the blaring horns and chaos of the city. Victor's family had left behind. The old car coughed and rattled as it climbed the hills. In the back seat, Rachel and Vanessa sat in uncomfortable silence, their designer clothes already collecting dust. When they finally arrived, Victor parked outside the old family home, a small, two-bedroom house surrounded by farmland and tall grass. The roof was rusty, the paint peeling, and a creaky wooden gate swung aimlessly in the wind. Vanessa stepped out and stared in disbelief. This can't be it. This isn't even a house. It's a shack, Rachel scoffed. Victor, tell me this is some kind of joke. You expect us to live here? Victor remained calm. It's all we have now. Inside, the house was basic. No television, no hot water, no Wi-Fi. just an old kerosene stove, two metal beds, and a table with three chairs. Rachel refused to touch anything, and Vanessa wouldn't even sit down. By evening, hunger started creeping in. There was no cook, no delivered dinner, just a few vegetables from the neighbor and a sack of maize flour Victor had bought on the way. He offered to make ugali and sukuma wiki, but Rachel rolled her eyes. "I don't eat peasant food. You figure it out." Victor quietly prepared the meal. He used to cook as a young man before wealth built a wall between him and the simple things. As he cooked, Vanessa sat on her phone, only to realize there was no signal. She nearly cried. "What is this life?" she muttered. "We're living like prisoners." That night, Victor slept on the couch. His wife and daughter had locked themselves in the only bedroom. He could hear them whispering, angrily, fearfully. But not once did they ask how he felt. In the days that followed, the truth began to show itself. Rachel started leaving the house during the day, coming back late with strange perfume lingering on her clothes. Victor noticed, but said nothing. Vanessa, unable to cope without social media and luxury, began stealing small amounts of money Victor had hidden to buy makeup and snacks from nearby shops. One day, he saw her exchanging flirtatious glances with a wealthy boda rider who often stopped by. The respect they once showed him was fading fast. His wife began snapping at him, blaming him for everything. "You're a failure, Victor. You couldn't even hold on to your empire." But what pierced him most was when she introduced him to a visiting businessman from the village as just a worker helping around the home. That night, Victor sat outside under the stars, the weight of betrayal crushing his chest. The people he had once given the world now saw him as nothing. It was becoming clearer every day. What they loved wasn't him. It was the lifestyle he gave them. But the test wasn't over yet. The days turned into weeks, and life in Moronga became the harsh reality Victor's family could no longer ignore. Victor had embraced the simplicity. Each morning, he woke up before the sun, fetched water from the community borehole, and tended to a small vegetable garden behind the house. The work was tough but healing. For the first time in decades, he felt grounded, connected to something real. Rachel, on the other hand, had grown bitter. The village didn't suit her. The dust ruined her heels, the sun darkened her skin, and the lack of social status made her feel invisible. She wore her disdain like perfume, thick and unavoidable. "I'm not meant for this place," she would mutter every day. "This is not the life I married into." She began dressing up in her best outfits every afternoon and leaving without explanation. Victor never asked where she went. He already knew. Whispers had begun in the village, stories of a mysterious, wealthy man from the nearby town whom Rachel had been entertaining. Some even claimed to have seen him entering Victor's compound when he wasn't home. Vanessa had stopped pretending altogether. She barely spoke to her father and spent most of her time trying to charm rich young men at the village center, hoping one of them would rescue her from poverty. She often mocked Victor behind his back, sometimes even to his face. "You're not a man," she snapped one evening when he refused to give her money to buy fake eyelashes. "You let us fall into this mess and expect us to suffer like peasants. You're pathetic." Victor said nothing. He just walked outside, sat on the stump under the mango tree, and stared into the horizon. A man broken, but not destroyed. That night, he found Rachel in their bedroom with another man, in their marital bed. When she saw him standing in the doorway, she didn't even flinch. She smiled bitterly. "What? You expect me to wait around for you to fix a life you ruined?" The man beside her smirked. "You heard the lady." Victor left the room in silence. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he sat in the dark kitchen, listening to the insects chirping outside and the mocking laughter from the bedroom. His heart was shattered, but his soul was finally awakening. He had his answer now. Not just about love, but about loyalty, respect, and truth. And soon, they would have theirs. The betrayal lingered like smoke in Victor's lungs. But he didn't confront Rachel. Not yet. Confrontation would only give her a reason to play the victim. He wanted her to reveal everything on her own. So he stayed silent, watching, listening, and slowly cracks began to form. The rich businessman Rachel had been entertaining, his name was Patrick, was not the gentleman she believed him to be. One day he came to the house drunk, shouting her name outside the gate. "Rachel, come out, you fake classy woman. You think you can use me, then ignore me? Victor stood at a distance, silently watching the man humiliate her. Rachel eventually came out, trying to calm him down, but the neighbors had already gathered to watch the drama unfold. Patrick insulted her, calling her a gold digger and a fraud. When he left, she ran back into the house, shaking with embarrassment. Later that night, she lashed out at Victor, as if it were his fault. If you were still the man you used to be, I wouldn't need other men. You're the one who forced me into this shame. Victor simply replied, no one forced you to betray your vows, not even poverty. Meanwhile, Vanessa's fantasy life in the village was falling apart too. The rich village boys she flirted with began to lose interest. Word had spread that the Mwangi family was broke for real, and Vanessa, for all her beauty and city charm, came with baggage. One of them, a young man named Brian, stood her up at a village gathering. She had dressed up in her best clothes, hoping to be the center of attention, but he danced with another girl instead. Humiliated, Vanessa came home and threw her shoes across the room. I hate this place. I hate you, she screamed at her father. I wish you were dead so I could at least inherit something. Victor stood at the doorway, staring at his daughter. The same daughter he had loved with all his heart, whose school fees he paid in dollars, whose every birthday he celebrated with lavish parties. Now she wished him dead, for money. His silence was no longer from weakness. It was from understanding. They had both shown him who they truly were, and that truth no longer hurt. It freed him. That night, he began writing a letter. Not just any letter, but a carefully crafted message that would reveal everything: the fake bankruptcy, the hidden fortune, and the test. He folded it and placed it in the drawer, ready for the right moment, because the time for truth was near. And when it came, it would shatter everything. The days dragged on like a slow, inevitable tide, pulling Victor further from the life he had once known. As the weeks passed, he had watched his wife and daughter unravel, their true selves seeping out from behind the polished facades they had so carefully constructed. There were no apologies, no regret, just bitterness and disappointment. But the biggest twist was yet to come.